Welcome to Fresh Catholic, a podcast for those who are converting, reverting, or simply want a fresh perspective of the Catholic faith to help them to open their hearts and minds to become closer to the love and goodness of Christ. My daily prayer is that I will be a bright light to others, to be filled with the love and light of Christ, so that when people look at me, they see Him radiating out from me for His glory.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lori Balderas, and I'm so happy you're here. So, you should know that I'm a very determined girl. My mom always says that my middle name is Determination. It's not. It's Anne. But she likes to tease me. It takes a lot for me to throw in the towel or quit or give up. Sometimes this is a good trait. Other times it could be a bad trait or sometimes an annoying trait. When is a person being irritating, nagging, or relentless? And when are they being perceived as determined and persistent? They're kind of all the same thing, but it depends on how you present it, I feel. When I want something these days, I will pray about it. I will pray and ask for God's will and ask for God's timing. And if you haven't listened to the last episode, Divine Direction, Surrendering to God's Will, I suggest you go back and listen to that. But like I've said in previous episodes, you have to mean it when you're praying to the Lord. And you most likely won't get what you want the exact moment you pray. So you need to be prepared for that. You have to pray and trust His vision. You have to pray that you trust in general. I believe that you have to continually pray. You have to be persistent. If things don't happen immediately, don't give up hope. Don't quit. Don't throw in the towel. Pursue the Lord. In 1 Thessalonians 5:17, St. Paul says, "Pray without ceasing." I'm also reminded that as you're praying persistently, as you are maybe being relentless with the Lord, the times while you're doing that, you have to remember you can't just sit in the corner praying to Him and expecting something to just boom, happen. You have to be aware and open to what He's showing you. It, in air quotes, it might be different or in disguise of what you're actually envisioning. In the parable of the persistent widow in Luke 18, verses 1 through 8, Jesus is reminding us to pray and not lose heart. Let me read that to you now. Then He told them a parable about the necessity for them to pray always without becoming weary. He said, "There was a judge in a certain town who neither feared God nor respected any human being. And a widow in that town used to come to him and say, 'Render a just decision for me against my adversary.' For a long time the judge was unwilling, but eventually he thought, 'While it is true that I neither fear God nor respect any human being, because this widow keeps bothering me, I shall deliver a just decision for her, lest she finally come and strike me.' The Lord said, 'Pay attention to what the dishonest judge says. Will not God then secure the rights of His chosen ones who call out to Him day and night? Will He be slow to answer them? I tell you, He will see to it that justice is done for them speedily. But when the Son of Man comes, will He find faith on earth?' I believe it's the journey of getting to the end result, where God is listening to your prayer, but He's also trying to really stretch you. He may seem silent, but He's listening. He's trying to help you or others around you to grow in holiness. He's trying to get you to realize what the journey is about, not just giving you whatever you want the minute you ask for it. You have to wait sometimes. You have to be patient, and that's the hard part. But if you can enjoy the journey, if you can be open to what God is guiding you to do along the way, if you can recognize and notice the strength He's giving you in your desert, if you can notice that and trust and know that He's listening to your prayers, and knows what's in your heart, but also knows the actual goal of what He wants for you. He already knows what that's going to be. He wants us to ask. He wants us to be persistent. He wants us to pursue Him. I believe anything worthwhile or worth having takes time and effort and lots of prayer and patience, that the Lord will provide what we need when we need it. He's waiting for the perfect time to grant your wishes. He's waiting for the time when it will be most needed, most appropriate, and most necessary. I've had certain things that I've been praying for days, months, years, and when they happen, sometimes I see them coming, but sometimes they happen out of the blue. It may even take a minute to realize what's happening, and I say, oh, my prayer is being answered, yay. Other times, God makes me work for things. Either way, I'm grateful, but that's kind of the thing. You never quite know what God's up to. And you can look back later and say, oh, I see why that happened that way. I see that I was supposed to take this little detour so I could meet these people. Oh, I see I was supposed to make this other turn, or I was supposed to make another decision first in order to make whatever you're having happen, Lord, happened, and it's the best thing. Oh, I get it. Hopefully that's what you're doing, because that's how we learn lessons in life. Have you ever had something you really wanted in your life and you thought it was just the most awesome, wonderful, beautiful thing, and it just isn't coming true? It isn't happening? Or it's failure after failure and you just feel like you're beating your head against a wall? Or you feel like God isn't listening to your prayers? Or you don't feel worthy of whatever you're asking for? Well, I think that's very typical and normal and human. But be persistent in prayer. Instead of praying how you want to see something happen, maybe say, Lord, these are the things I'm interested in. If it be your will, please help it to happen. Or show me your plan for me. Show me your will. Show me the lighted path. And then actually follow what He's showing you. To me, being persistent in prayer is showing God and proving to God that you believe in Him, that you trust in Him. It shows Him that you're being hopeful and that you're not losing your security in Him. Staying hopeful, in my opinion, is a big factor. And we live in a hopeless world, so being hopeful is not easy, but it is definitely important. So how do you stay hopeful? How do you stay faithful when you don't see your prayers being answered immediately or otherwise? When you keep praying and you're not seeing anything happen, you just see a dark tunnel ahead of you and you feel like you're walking through quicksand, uphill, going nowhere, clawing your way. I'm laughing, but it's not funny. I know my husband and I feel this way a lot of the time regarding our relationships with people or regarding our work or our future. How do you stay hopeful and faithful and all of that? Well, it's hard. Not saying it's easy. But there's definitely people that don't give up. They are persistent. They're persistent in prayer. They're persistent in life. And I believe when they have that, even if the Lord doesn't answer the prayers that they're asking for again and again, they are learning along the way. They are deciding to switch gears, pivot, and go with whatever the Lord wants. And maybe their prayers are being answered. But the plan God has in place isn't what we think we need or want, but God does. I have a former bride of mine who I feel has these characteristics. She has had major trials and traumas, but she's persisted in prayer and stayed hopeful. Here's my interview with Arianna Galvan. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join me today. I know you are submerged in baby land. Arianna and her husband, Matthew, were one of my wedding couples in 2022. That was a beautiful day, and I'm so happy I was a part of it. I'm just really grateful you've decided to come and open your heart to my listeners. I know you've been through a lot on your baby journey, or I'm calling it a baby trek, because I don't know what I like about the word journey, but trek seems like an even more intense thing you've gone through because it's been extra difficult, I know. But you're here today with this little miracle, and she's a little snorter. So if you hear little snorts, that's what it is the little angel baby. Anyway, I'm so grateful to have you. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and Madison.
Yeah. So first of all, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself prior to marriage and then since marriage, like a little bit of your background?
I'm one of 5. My mom and dad had 2 boys and 3 girls. I'm number 4. I come from a big family. My mom is one of 7, and we just, we're one big family, and, with all the ups and downs that every family has. I grew up in Lompoc in Santa Barbara County. I work for the Sheriff's Department, and I moved to Ventura, and I love it in Ventura. It's a home away from home. It's not too far, but it's not too close. Right. So it's like it's a little bit different. It's bigger for sure. I grew up in a tiny town, so everybody knew everyone, and it was nice to get away. And
then you married Matthew.
Yes.
And he's awesome.
Oh, yes.
You guys are a beautiful couple.
Thank you.
And then, so tell me about, since you've been with Matthew, what have been some of the things that you've gone through since you've been with him?
So Matthew and I, we got together, and actually we met at the Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
So we say we met in jail. The good side, I guess. We actually had an accident in 2020. We were riding our motorcycle, and a car hit us, and we're lucky to be alive. We had a bunch of injuries and broken bones, and we were, incapacitated for a little bit. We took about 6 months each to actually get on our feet. And recovery was like a year for both of us. It was really hard. I put a strain on, both of us. I moved back with my mom because I needed someone to take care of me, and his mom moved in with him to take care of him. And it was very difficult and hard, especially with a new couple to go through an accident. It tests you.
Yes.
It makes you question things in yourself, and is it worth it? And, all those things that come into doubt because, it's hard. And then we recovered, and we're miracles that we say to ourselves because, each doctor that spoke to us said that, they were surprised we were alive.
Wow.
Which, something to say, or we have limbs, and, our limbs were able to put back together again. So we were puzzles. So,
wow.
We have scars, and memories, and it's unfortunate we'll never ride a motorcycle again. But miraculously, we got pregnant, and then I had a miscarriage at 20 weeks. The doctor, did their tests on myself and the placenta and everything and the baby, and they said that they didn't know why it happened, and it kind of just, it happens. So, that was hard for me to go through, and Matthew as well, and we didn't understand why me, why us, why do bad things happen to us. So we, grieved, we healed, it was hard. And then I got pregnant again, and at 20 weeks again, I lost the baby. So that was the second baby, and same thing, we had no idea why. Doctors, they were like, we don't understand. You're healthy, Matthew's healthy. They did tests. My mom had, 5 children, no problems, no issues with pregnancies or anything. So there's nothing to compare it to as well. So that was really hard for me. And it's not that I wanted there to be an issue, but I wanted an answer. And the answer was, you're healthy, and we don't know why. So we've seen plenty of doctors. They did all the tests on fertility and all the things that it may have been, and there was no answer. So it was hard. So then we kind of just were like, oh, well, maybe we're not meant to have a baby right now. Or, it was hard for me to remain positive and hopeful. But Matthew's wonderful. So he was positive, and to have someone who's so faithful. I grew up with a faith, my background, I grew up Catholic, but I didn't practice as, I guess you can say, as deeply. It was hard because my parents ended up getting a divorce. So I think it put a strain on how faithful I was, I guess. It made me question all of it. And Matthew's one that still believes no matter what. And to see that in somebody so deeply and strong, it's like, whoa, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know someone could be so passionate about and really believe what he feels and sees and, says that, that's the way he grew up, and to see a successful marriage from his parents, 30 plus years, and they are solid. And I just didn't understand that was a thing. I told my mom when I met Matthew that I didn't understand. I'm like, there's no way a family's like this. Like, there's no way. And it was like something that I'm like, oh my goodness, it's in every one of their family. It wasn't just their parents. Everybody that's married stays married. And in my family, I've seen, I have come from a huge, family, but that's not the case. And that there's a few that stayed, together. But for the most part, it's weird to see. To me, it was odd because, my parents were married for 20 plus years, and then, that didn't work out. And to see someone, like, no matter what, the faith is so strong in their family that no matter what they go through, they're like, we're going to be together. And to see that in Matthew was like crazy. And I fell in love with that part of him too, because, it was just amazing to see.
That's beautiful.
So that, and, he brought me back to the church, I always say, because when we got in our accident and miscarriages, I was like, why me? Like, I'm a good person. I'm faithful. I do all the right things. Why me? And he's just like, it happens. And it was hard for me in the beginning to understand why. But I told myself that, I'll be okay. We'll be okay. And I don't know if I would be able to get through if it wasn't for him in that aspect. But he was very faithful, and he continues to be very strong in leading our family. So that after that, it was crazy. And then we got pregnant again. And so I was scared the entire time. We kept our pregnancy hidden, besides like our parents. And, I told Matthew, I can't tell anybody right now, like, I mentally can't do it. And, he understood. He went through the same thing. He didn't want people asking questions, and it was just hard. It's still hard. And well, we made it all the way, and the doctors, we have a wonderful doctor. We, seen somebody else, a specialist, and she said, your baby's super healthy, and there's no explanation of why it happened prior, but as of now, you are a healthy woman, and you should be able to have pregnancies in the future. So
I'm wondering if the 20-week mark was traumatizing to you. Coming up on the 20-week with Madison.
Oh, absolutely. I was already freaking out about everything and anything. She ended up putting me on bed rest after 20 weeks, just due to the fact that, it's happened at the same time. Okay. So, that may have been the reason why every week you would think that I would get better, but no, it was worse.
Hang on.
Super scary. And I think it was worse after, because all I kept thinking was like, she was bigger and no more weight and more this and more that. And I was like, oh no. So Matthew was like, isn't it supposed to get, ease you a little bit? Like, you're further along. I'm like, no, it's worse. I mean, at that point, they say baby's viable after, 28 weeks. And so every week I'm like, it's not enough. It's not enough. And
obviously then you have the baby.
Yes.
And did giving birth go okay?
So I got induced at 39 weeks in the morning at actually it was more like noon. And I didn't have her till the following day at 10 o'clock at night. There was a long labor. She was not ready. They did everything, and she just didn't want to come out, which was like a blessing. And so Matthew jokes about, he's like, well, we prayed that she didn't come out, so maybe that's why. I'm like, yeah, maybe. So we prayed that she didn't come out early, and no, man, she didn't want to come out. But she was good. She was a big baby. She was 9 pounds.
Oh, my goodness.
She was a big baby. Matthew and my mom were in there with me. My mom was motivating me when I was like, oh my goodness, how do people do this? And she said, oh no, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it. She got stuck, actually. So when I was pushing, they found out she was turned upwards. I guess they call it side up. So her eyes were facing the wrong way when I was like active labor. And I was already dilated. So they went in and pretty much made sure she turned. And they said if I didn't get her out within the hour, that it was going to be, it's hard for her. So, well, and me, but they didn't want to get her stuck due to the fact she was kind of large. So they said if she doesn't come out in the hour, we're going to have to do a cesarean. And I was motivated. I told my mom, like, no way, we're going to get her natural. Like, the goal was natural. We're doing this. And we did it. We got her out.
Beautiful, beautiful. I bet it was very, very exciting day for everybody, a relief.
Oh, yes.
Sure of it all.
Oh, yes.
First of all, thank you for that story, because the main reason I wanted you here today was I think that a lot of women go through very similar stories as yours. And I know that in some of my brides, there's two of you in particular that have really struggled with this. You almost have not an identical story, but it's very, very similar. And I prayed for you guys so much, and I was so happy when you both were able to have your babies, because, you know, I know that you've gone through these different traumas and trials and everything. And I know that you made the comment about staying hopeful. I know that's hard when things, you know, like you're saying, why me? Why am I going through this? I'm a good person. I mean, I know the other woman I'm speaking of, she almost said exactly what you said to me. And it's like, I think that's a general thing, is where you think, I'm doing everything right, Lord. I say this, you know, where I say, we're praying to you. We love you so much. We're doing all the right things. Why are these things happening over and over and over? And so, you know, my question for you is, how did you and how do you stay hopeful in things? And how did you want to continue trying? Like, instead of curling up in a ball, maybe you had days where you curled up in a ball and you were having a bad day. I know I have days like that where it's just like, okay, this is over the top and I'm just going to cocoon, as I call it. That's a nice way of happy, the nervous breakdown or meltdown. But how do you stay hopeful? What's your how did you do that?
We'll be right back.
Rising anti-Semitism. New generations redefining how they connect with Jewish traditions. Changing dynamics among Jews around the globe. Take a deep dive into these topics and more on Mosaic, Exploring Jewish Issues, the podcast brought to you by the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County. Hear from the thought leaders, politicians, scholars, and artists at the forefront of Jewish life today. Subscribe to Mosaic, Exploring Jewish Issues, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Well, quite honestly, I wasn't the most hopeful in the beginning. I was, so down, and I didn't understand or comprehend. And to me, it was like, and especially there was no answer for me. It was like, what on earth? Like, why is this happening to me? And then, of course, I got to the end where I was looking at people and like, they don't deserve a baby. And I was jealous, and I hate to say that, and I know I shouldn't be, but my goodness, I was so like hurt that I didn't understand. And being someone who works for the Sheriff's Department, I see a lot of different clientele. And with that clientele, I see people, and I hate to say, but some that do not deserve children. And I hate to say that because, that's so harsh. But, people who do drugs and don't even know they're pregnant and all this other stuff. And I just was like, oh my goodness, that I see them constantly. These women don't understand what they have, they have miracles with them, and they're like acting like it's no big deal, still doing their drugs, still doing this, and don't care if the baby makes it or not. And I was, talking to myself, and like at work, it was hard to return. When I returned and I seen all this, I just had so much hatred and pain. And I was asked Matthew, like, why is this happening? Like, do you see this? And he just said, you need to pray, you need to remain positive, you need to have some hope. And I'm like, but why? Like, give me an answer. Like, he's like, there's no answer. You're not going to get an answer. And I think that's when I started to realize that I needed to grieve and pray and try to come back to normal and reality, I guess, because I was never going to get an answer. As much as I wanted one, there was no answer. I hate to say I wanted to pull away from the church a little bit because I was so hurt. Like, I don't want to see people right now. That's where I was at. I said, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to see people. I don't want to tell them, because everyone knew I was pregnant, and people are wonderful and they ask questions and like, oh, when's the baby due? And, every woman is different and you see different bodies. So you couldn't tell I was pregnant anyway. But when they would ask, it wasn't their fault they were asking, but it was hurtful to me because I didn't even know how to respond to that. Like, oh, when's the baby due? And it's like, I lost the baby. And then, of course, everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry. It was just getting hard. And I told him, like, I don't want to go. I don't want to see people. And then he's like, this is the time when you need to go. And I was like, I don't want to go. And he said, no, we're going. Like, you need to put your big girl pants on and we need to go. You'll feel better. Like, I promise you'll feel better.
He is a wise man, that Matthew Galvan.
He is very wise. And I do, give credit to his parents because that's who he reached out to. And, because he was my strength in certain aspects. And he wouldn't have that if he didn't have that great backing from his two parents. Laura and Barney are amazing people.
Right.
They're, spiritually, they're so strong. So I love it. And so he, we kept going, even though I was, nervous and I had all these feelings, that I didn't want to have. And I told him, like, I would see people, we knew that, got pregnant at the same time or they're further along. And it was just hard. And I told him, like, I'm jealous. And then I finally told myself, like, well, maybe I'm meant to just be an aunt. Maybe, maybe it's just not in my books right now. And, in my future, I was coming to the realization that it will happen if it happens. And, then we ended up getting pregnant. So that was, a miracle on its own.
It's interesting you say that about in your line of work. I think we all get what you're saying. I don't think, it's like we all got it yet. It's interesting to me because the other woman that's one of my brides that's in a similar boat, she and I had a conversation one time and she said almost the very same thing of all that her friends were getting pregnant, even her family members, and she wanted to be happy, and she felt bad that she didn't feel happy. She was mad. She didn't say she was jealous. I'm just saying I think she felt envy and jealousy in these things. And she and I had a conversation about kind of like you're saying, where these people who easily get pregnant, they don't value being pregnant or having the baby. They don't even value their own bodies or their own selves. And she and I had a conversation about people who go out and just have abortions and they don't bat an eye at it. She would take any of those babies. So I do understand that concept. And I think jealousy and envy are not great to feel those things. But I do think that's a very human emotion. I know when we don't feel like our prayers are being answered and somebody else seemingly is getting everything they want or everything's running smoothly for them, it's hard to not feel those things. I feel that way in a lot of things that I'm going through lately. And, you have to, like Matthew said, you have to trust in the Lord and keep hopeful. I'm glad you have him. That's been just such a gift. You're both a gift to each other, but how wonderful that he is that way. Because if he weren't, then, it would be even extra hard on you. So, yeah. And a little side note about his parents. So I also did their anniversary ceremony. So I met them then.
Yeah.
And then you guys got married. So I feel very incorporated into this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's great. They are wonderful people. So I'm wondering, when you said you were after the loss of the two other babies, and I would imagine just the trauma of all that, that's in a short period of time too. So did you guys have a plan B, like if we don't get pregnant, we're going to do this? Or like you made the comment, you didn't know if you were supposed to be a mother, maybe you were just supposed to be an aunt, but did you have another idea? Did you think maybe you would adopt?
Honestly, we didn't, because he said, we're going to have a baby. And so we kind of just kept it at that. And he was so positive. He said to me, no, we're going to have a baby. We're it's just, we're going to have one. So, and we kind of just left it at that.
I love that.
So yeah, I didn't have a plan B.
Let me ask you a question. After that, after he's making this statement that he's just, because I love that, how long until you got pregnant with Madison?
Like a year. So we got married and we got pregnant the same month. So
okay. Okay.
Not too much longer.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting thing too, because sometimes you never know if God was waiting for that, waiting for you to get married and then have this baby. And I said in my previous episode, if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it, about God's will.
I listened to it.
Good. In that episode, I say that sometimes when people aren't getting pregnant, God knows when that particular baby that you're supposed to have is supposed to happen. And even though there might be losses before that, any loss you have is a strengthening moment, honestly, in your own life, in your life as a couple, in your family's life. It might not seem like the greatest way to get strength, but it is. And I just love that he had that attitude, which I feel rubbed off on you, because that's, in my opinion, the whole key to following the Lord is, I say to my husband all the time, if we're going to say, we trust you, Lord, we believe in you, we totally will do whatever you want. If you don't really mean it, and he knows that, then he's waiting for you to actually mean it. You know the part in the Bible where the woman just touches Jesus's garment? Because she has so much faith, she knows if she even just touches his garment, that she's going to be healed. I feel like that's that same attitude Matthew has, is like that deep, no, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh, that gives me very excited chills. What did you, out of this whole experience of, your accidents, that's a big thing. I've obviously been through an accident like that where, the doctors are like, wow, you're an amazing miracle. And that changes a person right there. But you guys had it times two. Satan was really trying to wipe you both out that day. What do you think is your biggest takeaway from those experiences, like as you sit here today?
Life is precious. Even though when it's hard, you have to be faithful, because you get questioned. And maybe that was my test on my own to see if I was going to be faithful after. I don't know. And I hate to say like things happen for a reason, and I hate to say bad things happen, but they happen. So maybe there's a lesson after those for me. I have to think of maybe there was something else. Maybe God knew something was, the baby, something was wrong, or I don't know. I have to tell myself maybe that he and she weren't healthy. I don't know, or I wasn't healthy enough or strong enough, because that was after the accident. So maybe it was my body telling me you weren't ready. I mean, I have to think like that. So I would say being hopeful and remain faithful even when you're being tested.
And I think sometimes, even if you're looking for a big lesson or something, a lightning bolt moment, sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes it's about, he simply wants you to be faithful. He simply wants you to find that trust. I agree with you that I'm the type of person that thinks in those terms of maybe your body wasn't in the right state to have the baby. Or like you say, something wasn't quite right. And so God knew that this baby is the one that was going to be the one. And he wanted you to keep working and going for it. So I think that is the answer. It doesn't have to be a big answer, but sometimes it's just any answer. And also to encourage other people. I think that's a big thing. Yeah. If you wouldn't have gone through any of that, you wouldn't have anything to encourage people about.
No, yeah, absolutely.
You'd come up with something else. What advice would you give someone who's in the same or similar boat as you were? I believe all situations are different. So like I'm saying, you and my other bride are very similar stories, but you definitely have your own struggles and things like that. But what advice would you give someone if a woman came to you and said, oh, I've had 3 miscarriages, I'm giving up hope, I'm just not meant to have this baby. What would you say?
I would say, we don't know. We don't know what, I don't know what your plan is or, God's plan for you. But at this time, you need to remain hopeful because, people, I've heard of stories and friends who've had like 6 or 7 and then a child, after, or they're ready to adopt and then they get pregnant, things like this happen. So it's like, it's not when we plan, clearly, if we have our own plans, you could laugh at them because that's not what happens.
Right.
Our plans don't ever usually go as according, but, you need to remain positive. And I know it's tough and you're not going to want to hear it from anybody, but you need to, because what else are you going to go off of? You're just going to dig a tunnel for yourself and keep going round and round in circles of why me, why this, why that, how come, and you're not going to get an answer. And I think that was hard for me. So that would probably be the best advice is you're not going to get an answer right now. And you need to keep going, just keep going, keep living. And
Right. When you were at the moment where you were saying, maybe I'm not supposed to have a baby, maybe I'm supposed to be an aunt, do you feel like you were losing hope at that point? Do you feel like if you wouldn't have had Matthew saying to you, no, we're going to keep going, this baby's going to happen, let's keep positive, do you think the negativity would have just gotten the best of you?
I think maybe yes and no. I think, I would have to look for something and, I guess maybe keep me distracted or do something that maybe make me feel better. I don't necessarily think that I don't think I would have healed as fast. And I think eventually I would know that, I needed to go back to church to do all the things that make me feel better, because that does. And I always say I always feel guilty when I don't go. So that's a reason. There's a reason. And God's telling me to get my butt back in there. And
that's right.
And I told my mom, when I first started coming back after I took a little break from church, I felt so emotional when I walked into church. And I told my mom I wanted to cry. And she said, there's a reason why. She's like, you should feel guilty. You haven't been going to church. And I laughed because it's like, well, and I could, bet my life on it. I told myself that every time the Father spoke, I swear he was talking directly to me. And I'm like, oh no, this is not the business right now. And I realized that, there was a reason I needed to get my, myself back in there and feel better. And it was just, taking the first steps. Eventually I know I would have went back, but he made sure it was not a question that I was going to go back, that I was going back immediately.
Right.
And I think that's what I needed. I needed someone to kick me, and tell me, start walking, walk in there. And I do feel better. So I think eventually I would have went, but I don't think I would have healed as quickly or grieved as quickly or felt super positive, I guess, at the end of the day, because I didn't want to smile. I didn't want to. And I hate to say I had that hatred. I don't want to go. And he's like, yes, you're going. And, to someone tell me what to do is very difficult too, but he got me in there. So I do credit a lot, of my healing, because of Matthew. And I think maybe that was him too. He wanted to heal too. So
right.
It was, for both of us, but more so he knew that I needed to go.
And, right. And now, you're one person. When you got in a sacramental marriage, you're one body. And so when you're in pain, he's in pain. When you need to heal, he wants to help you to heal because, you're grafted onto this branch with Christ now. And that's exactly where you need to be. And of course, Satan doesn't want, he wants you guys to be discouraged. He doesn't want you to go to church. He doesn't want you to have this miracle baby. And so the fact that you kept on it and kept persistent, that's what this episode is about, is persistence in prayer, not losing hope. That's a hard thing for people. And I think it's exactly what Satan doesn't want us to be, is persistent. I'm very proud of both of you. So besides the very obvious reason of actually having your baby, what good do you think came out of all this heartbreak and loss that you suffered?
I hate to say we're like a counselor for others that go through this, but Matthew and I have had so many people reach out to us in the reverse, like, oh, be positive, this happened to me, blah, blah, blah. Or, hey, I need help. Like, I just went through this. And I mean, of course, that was hard for me. I'm like, what do I say? Because I wasn't the most positive in the beginning. And he said, tell them that. Like, I wasn't the most positive. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess there's no way to sugarcoat it. I mean, they're already, they need to know the realistic part. Like, oh, it's not, it's not all happiness after, like, oh, well, we're going to bounce back. Like, no, that's not what happens. It takes time, grieves time. And I'm like, I tell them, the people, we've had like a few couples reach out to us and, in secret, which is, it's nobody's, nobody needs to know. And it was something that I was like, wow, this is so common and nobody talks about it. And it's like, people are hurt and, just don't know how to reach out. They feel embarrassed. It's like, why are you embarrassed? This is nothing to be embarrassed about. And that's what I, told them. It's like, it's hard. Everyone grieves on their own time, a month, 2 months. And I said, just letting you know, it's been, 2 years and I still grieve. So that's a part of me that will always grieve. And most of, them are in the Catholic faith. So I, told them, and we actually started a miscarriage ministry or angel garden at Our Lady of the Assumption. Actually, it was my mother-in-law who, definitely had started the whole program, or, started the whole, she, did some more research, and, brought the idea to us and said how we feel about it. And we thought it was a great idea for people who, been through, heartache, trauma, and, to people to grieve and to go to a place where they feel safe and they can pray to their babies and stuff. So she created this garden where you purchase the stones and they come engraved, and she has, someone who does the stones for us, and that has the baby's names on it. Or you can do one name, two names, however you want to, but we theoretically just do one name. And, we place them in the garden, and Father periodically, or the deacons, go bless the garden. So it's a sacred, holy ground, and it's beautiful. We had a ceremony, and we've had, I think, one more, maybe two more since then, and to place the rocks that, that keep coming in. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful concept. I placed my rocks in the beginning, and every time there was like a ceremony, we went, and just to see so many people crying and grieving, and to see the thing that hurt me the most, I think there was an elderly woman who was, maybe in her 70s, and she said it happened like 40 years ago. And it's like, oh my goodness, she is still grieving, like, or she never got the opportunity to grieve. Right. And I didn't ask if she had kids after or anything like that, but it was something that, I realized that it can happen to anybody. And not just that, it's like, you don't know. I didn't know that for so many people at that, at our church that had went through something like this, and it was hard. And especially you can see certain ones that are, new, and we knew that. And it was something that they could look forward to just to go pray and feel good, after the, the heartache. And it was really good. And what a beautiful idea. My mother-in-law, she, it takes the credit for that one, because we used, we were the example, I guess, we were the start of it because of our losses. But I think it was also a place for her to grieve. That was her grandchildren, excuse me. And for her to grieve, and, my mother-in-law and my father-in-law to grieve. And I think that was perfect, because we all got, and it was like a bonding thing. So we all can grieve together, and for a place for all of us to go. And I just think it's so rewarding at the end of the day for all these people who have been through something similar, or, trauma, or even just lost a baby. Because, we had some people who just lost a child, and they were a little bit older. And it's like, well, that's something to grieve about too. It didn't mean, it had to be a child, in the womb, So I think it's a place for someone and people, families, to get together and being able to pray. It's pretty powerful.
It is. It's beautiful. It's actually outside my office at the church. So I walk by it every day, and there's a statue of the Blessed Mother. And then these stones, some are engraved and some aren't. But it's right near the school also, so the children are aware of it, I believe, as well. And it'll be there forever now, because it's, that your mother-in-law started that, and to help all of you in the family. But that's going to, like you say, it's helping so many other people. And I will take photos of it, and I'll post it on my Instagram so everybody can see the little angel garden. It's so sweet. And that's such a beautiful way to remember these little babies or children, So I love that idea. And I bought the paint for the wall. I don't know why they haven't painted it yet. I got this beautiful blue. I know.
They're waiting for some more volunteers.
I know. Well, it's going to be even more beautiful when the wall is painted.
I said they could have some St. Bonaventure kids that need to do some community service, because, it's their school.
Right.
And they're there.
And they could do that. Okay. I'll bring that up at a staff meeting. Well, I'm really grateful that you came today. I do think that this is a very valuable episode, because, like you said, I think there's people who, for whatever reason, this is a very personal thing. either people handle things very publicly or they handle them very personally, but everybody that's grieving or has suffering loss, or even people that, I know I have another bride that really wants to have a baby, and every time I see her, I tell her I'm praying for her, and I say it worked the other 2 times that I prayed. I know it was all me. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's so many prayers, it's so many people. And again, it's just God's timing and it's God's will, and he knows exactly when and where and who and what's going to happen in our life. So I just really appreciate you not only coming on my episode, but also realizing that you are able to help others. And I agree with Matthew that when you help others, the best thing is to be honest and not adjust what you're saying, because then it makes it more real to people. Like if you just act like, oh, it was fine, and you have this like standard answer for something that you think is the correct answer, that isn't as encouraging as you might think, because other people might be thinking, well, I felt like, you even made this comment, I felt horrible that I was thinking this way about the people at my job when I shouldn't be feeling that way. But it's okay that you're feeling that way. It's a very human way to feel. So I think that's the fact that you're able to help others is a beautiful gift. And I really encourage you to do that more, because then I think those people may end up helping others as well, because we all need to work on these traumas together. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Of course, thank you.
I can't wait to watch her grow up.
Oh, yes. She's getting baptized next month.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me and Madison.
Okay. I really enjoyed having Arianna and Madison here today. I know her story will help lots of people who struggle with the heartbreak of losing a baby or a child. I hope this episode will encourage people to not give up and trust the Lord's timing and plan, to stay hopeful in heart and persistent in prayer. And now some fresh Catholic news. So I can't wait for you to all go check out my Patreon channel, because I'm just sitting here waiting to send you my newsletter, and I just can't wait for you to see all the extra added bonus things you get when you become a Patreon subscriber. So there's behind the scenes photos, there's behind the scenes interviews, there are fresh Catholic afterthoughts, which is my little bit more spicy things I have to say after the recorded episode. So check that out. There is merch. I love my water bottles. I love my keychains. There's bags. There's hats. Check it out. And tell your friends, because then we can all be friends together and Patreon subscribers together. Also, please go to my website, freshcatholic.com. Go to the podcast tab, scroll down, and check out my ad for Sock Religious. The holidays are coming up fast. This is a great gift for everybody on your list. There is something there for everyone. Lots of choices of socks, whether it be Jesus socks, Mary socks, Saint socks. Go check it out. They're high quality, so fun. Everybody's feet will be the envy of all their friends. So go check it out, and you will get 10% off when you order. So yay about that. Also, I dropped down to number 12 on the list of 100, but that's okay, because I'm going to keep persisting in going up levels after levels. So thank you for all of you who are listening and putting me on that list. I so much appreciate it. I have new listeners, new followers. I am posting every day on Instagram and Facebook. Everybody's really loving those. We have Fresh Catholic comics. Go check those out. There's going to be some exciting news coming up about that in the near future. So thank you for sharing with your friends. Thank you for listening. Check out my YouTube channel. Thank you. Love you. Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. Now go out and be a bright light in someone's life. And remember, be focused, be faithful, and be fresh.
Fresh Catholic is produced, edited, and recorded at Wonder Mouse Studios in Ventura, California.